Namo Ramana. A very warm welcome to all. Namo Ramana. A very warm welcome to all the devotees of Ramana Kendra Delhi for Sunday Satsang with Mr. Michael James. In Mr. Narayanan's absence, I would request Mr. Krishnan to initiate with puja. Please.
Please start. Avashramastamam Jeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspadanaskanvan Mutibhisveda Sadhanam Om Shri Mahaganapadage Namaha Dhruvante Raja Varno Dhruvandevo Brihaspatihi Dhruvanta Indrashagnischa Rashtram Dharayatam Dhruvam Devim Vajamanayanta Devaha Tam Vishwarupa Pashavo Vadanti Sano Mandrehamo Jantuhanam धेनुर्वागस्मानोपस्थितैनो पर्वदेवा विवाशाली इन्द्रैवेहत्तविष्टष्टः यः राष्ट्रमुदारय अपि दुष्टमृतयत्यदः अदरे सन्दुषद्रवः इन्द्र इव वृत्रः दुष्टा सुमुहूर्तोऽस्तु सुप्रतिष्ठमस्तु नृत्यास्माव्ये नमसोपसत्य मित्रं देवं मित्रते यन्नोऽस्तु अनुराधान्नविषा वर्धयन्तः शरञ्जीवेन शरदस्य वीराः दीर्घायुष्यमस्तु हरिः ओम् आगमार्थं तु देवानां गमनार्थं तु रक्षसां घण्टारवं कणिं यादु देवदाख्येन कारणाम् ॐ कलशस्य मुखे विष्णुः कण्ठे रुद्रसमाश्रिता मूले तत्र स्थितो ब्रह्मा मध्ये मातृगणा स्मृता कुक्षोतु सागरा सर्वे सप्तद्वीहा वसुन्धरा ऋग्वेदोदयजुर्वेदः सामवेद तर्वणः अङ्कैश्च सगिता सर्वे कलशाम्बुसमाश्रिता अङ्के चैमने चैव गोदावरी सरस्वती नर्मदे सिन्धु कावेरी जलेऽस्मिन् सन्निधिं कुरु आयान्तु देवपूजार्थं दुरितक्षयकारणगाः पूजाकरणि प्रोक्ष्य आत्मानं च प्रोक्ष्य सत्यम ओम सवितर्वरेण्यं वर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः चोदयात् ओमापः योधीर्षः मृतं ब्रह्म भूर्भुवस्वरो ममोपात्तसमस्त रुदक्षयद्वारा श्रीपरमेश्वर प्रीत्यर्थं तदेव लग्नं रुदिनं तदेव ताराबलं चन्द्रबलं तदेव विद्याबलं दैवबलं तदेव लक्ष्मीपदे अङ्गुलीकं स्मरामि करिष्यमाणस्य कर्मणः निर्विघ्नेन परिसमाप्त्यर्थम् आदौ श्रीमहागणपतिपूजां करिष्ये अभवोपस्पृश्य गणानां त्वां गणपतिम् अवामहे कविं कवीनाम् उपवस्त्रमस्तमं ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणां ब्रह्मणस्पदानः शृण्वन् ऊदिभिः सेदसादनम् अस्मिन् हरिद्राबम्बे ईमहं महागणपतिं ध्यायामि महागणपतिम् आवाहयामि श्री महागणपतये नमः आसनार्थं अक्षतान् समर्पयामि वाद्यं समर्पयामि अर्घ्यं समर्पयामि आचमनीयं समर्पयामि मधुपर्गं समर्पयामि स्नापयामि वस्त्रोत्तरीयार्थं अक्षतान् समर्पयामि उपवीदं समर्पयामि दिव्यपरिमल गन्धान् धारयामि गन्धस्योपरि अक्षतान् समर्पयामि निद्राचूर्णं कुङ्कुमं समर्पयामि शोभन अक्षतान् समर्पयामि पुष्पमालान् समर्पयामि पुष्प पुष्पै पूजयामि। ओम सुमुखाय नमः। ओम एकदन्ताय नमः। ओम कपिलाय नमः। ओम जगन्नकाय नमः। ओम लंबोदराय नमः। ओम विकटाय नमः। ओम विघ्नराजाय नमः। ओम गणाधिपाय नमः। ओम धूमकेतवे नमः। ओम गणाध्यक्षाय नमः। ओम बालचन्द्राय नमः। ओम गजाननाय नमः। ओम अग्रतुण्डाय नमः। ओम सूत्रकर्णाय नमः। ओम हेरम्बाय नमः। ओम स्कन्दपूर्वजाय नमः। ओम गणपतये नमः। गणाध्यक्षाय नमः। ओम हेरम्बाय नमः। ओम धरणीधराय नमः। ओम महागणपतये नमः। ओम लक्ष्यप्रदाय नमः। ओम क्षिप्रप्रदाय नमः। ओम अमोघसिद्धये नमः। ओम अमृताय नमः। ओम मंत्राय नमः। ओम चिंतामणये नमः। ओम हृदये नमः। ओम सुमंगलाय नमः। ओम बीजाय नमः। ओम आशापूरकाय नमः। ओम वरदाय नमः। ओम शिवाय नमः। ओम काश्यपाय नमः। ओम नंदनाय नमः। ओम वाचासिद्धाय नमः। ओम दुंडी विनायकाय नमः। ओम नानाविध परिमल पत्रपुष्पाणि समर्पयामि। ओम धूपधपार्थम् आसनान् समर्पयामि। पुष्पै पूजयामि। कदलीफलं निवेदानन्तरम् आचमनीयं समर्पयामि। शुभयोग शुभकर्ण सकल विशेष वशिष्ठायाम अस्याम शुभजो ममोपात्तमस्थ विदक्षयद्वारा श्री परमेश्वर प्रीत्यर्थम स्मागम सकुटुंबानां क्षेमस्थैर्य वीर्य विजय आयुरारोग्य ऐश्वर्याणाम् अपवृद्ध्यर्थम समस्त दुरिलोपशान्त्यर्थम यावत् शक्ति ध्यान आवहनादि षोडश पूजां करिष्ये। ओम विशेषतः श्री रमण महर्षिभ्यां स्तोत्र सहनामावली जपम् एव शरमालां पारायणं च अद्य करिष्ये। ओम विघ्नेश्वराय नमः। यथास्थानं प्रतिष्ठापयामि शोभनार्थे क्षेमाय पुनरागमनाय च। ओम शुक्लां भरधरं विष्णुं अशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। ओं भूः ओं भुवः ओं सुवः ओं महः ओं जनः ओं तपः ओं सत्यं ओं सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। ओं आपः ज्योतिरिषः मृतं ब्रह्म भूर्भुवस्वरो मोपात्तमस्थ विदक्षयद्वारा श्री परमेश्वर प्रीत्यर्थं शुभे शोभने मुहूर्ते अद्य ब्रह्मणः विधिवराब्धे श्वेतवराहकल्पे वैवस्वतमन्वन्तरे अष्टाविंशतितमे कलियुगे प्रथमे पादे जम्बूद्वीपे भारतवर्षे भरतखण्डे मेरोः दक्षिणे पार्श्वे शकाब्दे अस्मिन् वर्तमाने प्रभवादि षष्ठी संवत्सराणां मध्ये विन्ध्यस्य उत्तरे आर्यावर्त एकदेशे इन्द्रप्रस्थ महाक्षेत्रे कुरुक्षेत्रे दक्षिणवाहिन्याः यमुनायाः पश्चिमे तीरे विक्रमशक बौद्ध अवतारे बार्हस्पत्यमानेन प्रमादीनां षष्ट्याः संवत्सरीणां मध्ये पिङ्गलनामसंवत्सरे सौरचान्द्रमानाभ्यां गोपकृतिनामसंवत्सरे दक्षिणायने शरदृतौ कृत्तिकामासे कृष्णपक्षे षष्ट्याः उपरि सप्तम्यां भजितौ भानुवासरयुक्तायां विष्णुयोग विष्णुकर्ण एवं गुण विशेषणविशिष्टायाम् अस्यां वर्तमानायाम् आश्लेष नक्षत्रायां शुभजितौ शुभयोग शुभकर्ण एवं गुण शेषण शिष्टायाम् अस्यां तमानाय उमोपाक्तमस्त वृक्षे द्वारा श्री परमेश्वर प्रीत्यर्थम् अस्माकं कुटुम्बानां क्षेमस्थैर्य वीर्य विजय आयुरारोग्य ऐश्वर्याणाम् अभिवृद्ध्यर्थं समस्त दुर्लोभशान्त्यर्थं यावच्छक्ति ध्यान आवहनादि षोडशोपचौर पूजां करिष्ये। विशेषतः श्री रमणमहर्षिभ्याम् अष्टोत्तर शतनामावली जपम् एव अक्षरमणमाला पारायणां च अद्य करिष्ये। We are now going to proceed to Ramana Ashtotram, page number 3 in Tamil and 62 in Sanskrit. पारसच्चित् सुखवारिराशेर्यस्योर्विमात्रं भुवनं समस्तं गुहागिदं तं रमणं गभीरं चिन्तावीनं हृदि चिन्तयामि। ॐ महासेन महासेन जाताय नमः। ॐ श्रीरमणाय नमः। ॐ श्रीगुरवे नमः। ॐ अखण्डसंविताहाराय नमः। ॐ महोजवसे नमः। ॐ कारणोद्भवाय नमः। ॐ जगत्काराय नमः। ॐ भूमिनाथस्थलोद्दिताय नमः। ॐ पराशर कुलोत्तंसाय नमः। ॐ सुन्दर्याबलाय नमः। ॐ गमनीय सुचारिद्राय नमः। ॐ सहायाम्बा सहायवने नमः। ॐ सोणाचल महोलीन मानसाय नमः। ॐ स्वर्णहस्तकाय नमः। ॐ श्रीमद्द्वादशान्त महास्थले शब्द विद्योत्याय नमः। ॐ महाशक्ति विभागेन प्रबुद्धाय नमः। ॐ परमार्थ विदे नमः। ॐ तीव्राय नमः। ॐ पितृपदान्वेषिणे नमः। ॐ इन्दुमौलिका पितृमते नमः। ॐ पितूरोजित शोणशैल प्राप्ताय नमः। ॐ तपोमयाय नमः। ॐ उदासीनाय नमः। ॐ महायोगिने नमः। ॐ महोत्साहाय नमः। ॐ कुशाकृतये नमः। ॐ शान्तसङ्कल्पसम्भराय नमः। ॐ सुसन्दृशे नमः। ॐ सवित्रे नमः। ॐ शिराय नमः। ॐ तपक्षिद सर्वाङ्गाय नमः। ॐ कुल्लाम्बुज विलोचनाय नमः। ॐ चन्द्रिकासहास श्रीमण्डिराजनमण्डलाय नमः। ॐ शूदपाठ्यां समासीनाय नमः। ॐ शूनिरागिल विभ्रमाय नमः। ॐ वेदवेदान्त तद्वज्ञाय नमः। ॐ चिन्मुद्रिणे नमः। ॐ त्रिगुणादिगाय नमः। ॐ विरूपाक्ष गुहावासाय नमः। ॐ विराजद कलाकृतये नमः। ॐ उद्दीप्त नयनाय नमः। ॐ पूर्णाय नमः। ॐ रसिदाचल ताण्डवाय नमः। ॐ गम्भीराय नमः। ॐ परमाचार्याय नमः। ॐ सुप्रसन्नाय नमः। ॐ अभयप्रदाय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणास्य निवाय नमः। ॐ धीराय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणभिमुखाय नमः। ॐ स्वराजे नमः। ॐ महर्षये नमः। ॐ भगवते नमः। ॐ ईड्याय नमः। ॐ भूमविद्यावशारदाय नमः। ॐ विमलाय नमः। ॐ दीर्घदर्शिने नमः। ॐ आप्ताय नमः। ॐ ऋषुमार्गप्रदर्शकाय नमः। ॐ समदृशे नमः ॐ सत्यदृशे नमः ॐ सत्याय नमः ॐ प्रशान्ताय नमः ॐ अमितविक्रमाय नमः ॐ सुकुमाराय नमः ॐ सदानन्दाय नमः ॐ मृदुभाषिणे नमः ॐ दयार्णवाय नमः ॐ सोनाचल हृद्भूत स्कन्दाश्रम निकेतनाय नमः ॐ सद्दर्शनोपदेष्ट्रे नमः ॐ सद्भक्तवृन्दपरिवृताय नमः ॐ गणेशमुनिभृङ्गेन सेवितां ग्रीशरोरुहाय नमः ॐ गीतोपदेश सारादि प्रसन्नचिन्नसंशयाय नमः ॐ वर्णाश्रम मतादीताय नमः ॐ रसज्ञाय नमः ॐ सर्वसात्कुण्ये नमः ॐ आत्मारामाय नमः ॐ महाभागाय नमः ॐ माधुरोक्तिदायकाय नमः ॐ इनिदाय नमः ॐ इनुदाय नमः ॐ विप्राय नमः ॐ मुनीन्द्राय नमः ॐ भावगोज्वलाय नमः ॐ दर्शनादकसंहारिणे नमः ॐ मौनमेन स्वात्मबोधकाय नमः ॐ निष्ठान्तिकरसान्निध्याय नमः ॐ शरणाद्बन्धमोचकाय नमः ॐ अन्तस्मिर चण्डांशवे नमः ॐ संसारार्णवधारकाय नमः ॐ शौनाद्रि दृष्टोदृष्ट्रे नमः ॐ वार्धविद्याप्रकाशकाय नमः ॐ अविच्युतनिजप्रज्ञाय नमः ॐ नैसर्गिकमहातपसे नमः ॐ कमण्डलधराय नमः ॐ शुभ्रगौबीनवसनाय नमः ॐ गुहाय नमः ॐ दण्डबाणये नमः ॐ कृपापूर्णाय नमः ॐ भवरोगविषभराय नमः ॐ स्कन्दाय नमः ॐ देवदमाय नमः ॐ अमर्तये नमः ॐ सेनान्ये नमः ॐ पुरुषोत्तमाय नमः। Further to this, now we are going to recite Upadeshasaram, page number 46 in Tamil and 90 in Sanskrit. कर्तुराज्ञया प्राप्यते फलं कर्म किं परं कर्म तज्जडं कृतिमहोददौ पतनकारणं फलमशाश्वतं गतिनिरोधकम् ईश्वरार्पितं नेच्छया कृतं चित्तशोधकं मुक्तिसाधकं कायवाङ्मनः कार्यमुत्तमं पूजनं जप चिन्तनं क्रमात् जगतैषधी युक्तसेवनम् अष्टमूर्तिभृदेवपूजनम् उत्तमस्तवात् उच्चमन्ददः सिद्धजं जप ज्ञानमुत्तमम् आद्यधारया श्रोदशासमम् सरलचिन्तनं विरलदपरं वेदभावना सोऽहमित्यसो भावनामिदा पावनीमता भावशून्य सद्भावसुस्थितिः भावनाबलात् भक्तिरुत्तमा हृत्स्थले मनः स्वस्थदा क्रिया भक्तियोगभो आश्च निश्चितं वायुरोदनः लीयते मनः झालपक्षिवत् रोदसाधनं चित्तवायव चित्क्रियायुता शाकयोद्वयी शक्तिमूलका लयविनाशने उभयरोदने लयगदम्बुन भवति नो मृदं प्राणबन्धना लीलमानसम् एकचिन्तनान् नाशमेद्यतः नष्टमानसोत्कृष्टयोगिनः कृच्छमस्तिगं स्वस्तितं यतः त्यवारिदं चिद्ददात्मनः चिद्वदर्शनं तत्त्वदर्शनं मनसं तु किं मार्गणे कृते नैव मानसं मार्ग आर्जवात् वृद्धः स्वहं वृद्धिमाश्रिता वृद्धयो मनो विद्यहं मनः अहमयं कुतो भवति चिन्वतः अयि वदत्यहं निजविचारणम् अहमिनाजबा अमदं दया पुरधिहृत्स्वयं परमपूर्णसत् इतमहं वदा अभिज्ञहं मन्वहम् अहमिनीलगे यलयसद्धया विग्रहेन्द्रिय प्राणदीतमः नागमेकसत् तज्जडं च सत् भक्तवासिगाः चित्तमेतरा सत्ययागि चेत् चित्तया वयम् ईशजीवयो वेषदीपिता सत्त्वभावतो वस्त्र केवलम् वेषहानतः स्वात्मदर्शनम् ईशदर्शनम् स्वात्मरूपतः आत्मसंस्थितिः स्वात्मदर्शनम् आत्मनिर्भयात् आत्मनिष्ठता ज्ञानवर्जिता अज्ञानहीनचित् ज्ञानमस्ति किं जातुमन्तरम् किं स्वरूपं यत् आत्मदर्शने अव्यया भवा अपूर्णचित्सुखम् बन्धमुक्त्यदी तं परं सुखम् विन्ददीगदी वस्तुदैविकः अहमवेदगं निजविभानगं महतियं तपो रमणवागियम् अहमवेदगं निजविभानगं महतिदं तपो रमणवागियम् महतितं तपो रमणवागियम्.
A warm welcome to all the devotees for Sunday Satsang with Mr. Michael James at Ramana Kendra. Uh, as we have all been attending his lectures over the last 3 years, this session is going to be on Anma Vidai, as he has been addressing us through this current year. We all know Mr. James, so I will not take much time, but I see there are a few new visitors both on the YouTube and in the Zoom session this evening. So just a quick background. Mr. Michael James had started his spiritual journey at Tiruvannamalai during his visit to India in 1976, where he stayed for over 20 years. He had a long friendship and association with Sri Sadhu Om and assisted him in translating Guru Vachaka Kovai, Nanyar, Ulladu, Narpadu, and other works of Bhagavan into English. Mr. James is now based in London, where he regularly discusses Bhagwan's teachings with fellow devotees via email and Zoom, focusing primarily on explaining his original Tamil writings. Mr. Michael James addresses devotees of Ramana Kendra Delhi every second Sunday of the month. This evening is an aberration because of his changing schedules. Sir, I would now request you to please take over. Thank you.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Arunachala Ramanaya. Namaskaram. Today I'm going to continue talking about verse 3 of Anma Vidai. But before I start, just if anyone has any questions, if you're attending the Zoom meeting, you can write your questions in the chat and they'll be relayed to me. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can write him a live chat, and they'll whatever questions you write will be relayed to me later on in the meeting. So last time I was talking about verse 3 of Anma Bide, but just to pick up from where I left off, I'll first read the meaning of this verse. That is, what Bhagavan says in this verse is, without knowing oneself, if one knows whatever else, so what? Or well, the word he uses is just what, but it implies so what, or what's the use of knowing anything else without knowing oneself. And then he goes on to say, if one has known oneself, then what else exists to know? That's a rhetorical question, but implies that if we know ourselves, there's nothing else for us to know. And then he goes on to say, when one knows in oneself, that self, which is the light without separation in separate sentient beings, within oneself, the shining of oneself alone will flash forth. This is the shining forth of grace, the annihilation of ego, the blossoming of happiness. Therefore, are extremely easy is Anma Bide. So that's the meaning of the verse. Till now I've been explaining about these first two sentences. Without knowing oneself, if one knows whatever else, so what? If one has known oneself, then what exists to know? In order to explain this, I was discussing some verses of Uludu Napadu, that is verses 9, 10, 11, and 12 so far I've discussed. I've also discussed verse 27 of Upadesh Undya, because all these verses are relevant. So last time I was talking about in verse 12 of Uludu Napadu, Bhagavan says that wait a second, I'll just get the verse. What he says in verse 12 is, what is devoid of knowledge and ignorance is actually knowledge. That which knows is not real knowledge. Since one shines without another for knowing or for causing to know, oneself is knowledge. One is not a void, no. So what he's saying here is, but true knowledge or true real awareness is devoid of knowledge and ignorance about anything other than oneself. That's the implication. And that which knows it, when he says that which knows is not real knowledge, he means that which knows in this context means ego. Because ego is what knows anything other than itself. And then he says, since it shines, or since one shines, without another for knowing or for causing to know. What he means here is, since our real nature shines without anything other than itself, for it to know or for it to cause to know, oneself, he says, Tan Arivahum, oneself is knowledge. In other words, what we alone are the real knowledge of the real awareness. And then he says Parantu, not a void. So he's saying that our real nature, though it's devoid of knowledge and ignorance about anything other than oneself, it's not a void. So I'd explained up to this far last time. So it's from this point that I'll continue. Having discussed verse 12 of Uludu, I then begin to discuss, and I'll now begin to discuss verse 13 of Uludu Napadu. To emphasize the fact that nothing other than oneself exists, so there's nothing of which we could ever be empty. That is, void means what is empty. We can be empty only if there's something of which we are, of which we are empty. But since nothing other than ourself exists, there's nothing of which we could ever be empty. That's the idea. So to emphasize this, he begins the next verse, namely verse 13 of Ulujunapadu, by saying Jnanamam Tane Me. Oneself who is jnana alone is real. Jnana in this context means pure awareness. So uh, we ourselves are pure awareness, and that alone is what is real. That is the idea. What he says in this verse 13 is Jnanamam Tane Me. Oneself who is awareness alone is real. Nanavam jnanam ajnanamam. Awareness that is manifold is ignorance. Hoyam ajnaname, jnanamam, jnanamam tanne andri indru. Even ignorance, which is unreal, does not exist except as oneself who is awareness. And then to illustrate this, he gives an analogy. Anigal tam palavam poi. All the many ornaments are unreal. Mayam ponne andri undo. Do they exist except as gold, which is real? Poha say. So what he means here by real or may is what actually exists. And what he means by unreal or poi is what does not actually exist, even if it seems to exist. And what actually exists is only our self as pure awareness, jnana, as he points out in the first sentence of this verse, jnanamam tane me, oneself who is jnana alone is real. Since we alone are what actually exists, knowing anything other than ourselves is knowing what does not actually exist as if it exists, as if it does exist. So it is not real awareness or true knowledge, but only ignorance. As he implies in the second sentence of this verse, nanavam jnanam ajnanamam. Jnana, meaning awareness, that is nana, manifold, diverse, various, or different, is ajnana, is ignorance. Since we alone exist, there's nothing other than ourselves for us to know. So when we know what seem to be other things, it is ourself alone that we are knowing as all those other things. In other words, we, the one awareness, seemingly become a subject, knowing ourself as many objects. So this seeming division of ourself into a subject and many diverse objects or phenomena is what Bhagavan describes here as nanabam jnanam, awareness that is nana, manifold or diverse. To understand more clearly what he means by nanabam jnanam, awareness that is manifold, it is helpful to consider how he expressed it in the original version of this verse, which is now verse 12 of Upadesha Tanipakal. That is, when he first composed this verse, he composed it in this form, and later he in order to pack more ideas in, he modified it, and that is the modified version, which is verse 13 of Ulujunapadu. So in the original version, what he said is, Jnanam andre unme, awareness alone is real. Nana vai kankindra jnanam andri indru ajnanam tan jnanamam tanne andri indru. That means ignorance, which does not exist except as awareness that sees as many, itself does not exist except as oneself who is awareness. So what he's saying here is ajnana, ignorance, is only the awareness that sees as many. What's he mean by saying the awareness that sees as many? That is that what actually exists is only one, namely ourself. When we see many things, we are seeing ourselves as those many things. So that's what he means by nana vai kankindra jnanam, the jnana that sees as many. So this is what he implies when he puts it in a more compact form, saying nanabam jnanam. and that nanavam jnanam is ajnana, that is ignorance. So knowing many things is ignorance, because what we are knowing as many things is only the one thing that alone actually exists, namely ourself. So we ourselves are seeing ourselves as all this multiplicity. That is ignorance. But that ignorance does not exist except, I mean, what the underlying reality of that ignorance is the one real knowledge or awareness, which is ourself. That is, without real awareness, there could not be the false awareness, but sees as many. So the reality of this false awareness that sees as many, namely ego, is the one real awareness, which is the pure awareness I am, Satchit. And then he gives the same analogy. The second two lines of a verse, last two lines of a verse are not any different. All the many ornaments are unreal. Do they exist except as gold, which is real? Say. That is just like what he's emphasizing by this analogy is what is real is the substance. In the case of gold and ornaments, gold is the substance, so that is real. The ornaments are unreal because the same piece of gold, today it may be a bangle, tomorrow it may be made into a ring or a necklace or something else. So the forms are unreal, the substance is real. In the case of that's the analogy, but in the case of what it's analogous to, what is real is only the one pure awareness I am, which is what we actually are. When we see that one awareness as all this multiplicity is analogous to the ornaments. The multiplicity is constantly changing, and it appears only when we rise as ego. When we cease rising as ego, like every day when we fall asleep, all the multiplicity disappears. So multiplicity exists only in the view of ourself as ego, but it's all just an appearance. None of it is real. What is real is only the fundamental awareness I am, which is what we actually are. What he implies by saying nana by kankindra jnanam andri indru ajnanam, ajnana, which does not exist except as jnana that sees as many, in other words, except as awareness that sees as many, is that ajnana is nothing other than ego, which is the awareness that sees the one as many. That is, since what actually exists is only one, namely ourself as pure awareness, knowing, seeing, or being aware of this one as if it were many things is ignorance. In other words, knowing ourself, the one indivisible and immutable pure awareness, which alone is real, as a subject knowing diverse objects or phenomena, is the primal ignorance, mula avidya, which is the root of all other forms of ignorance. So this is what he implies in verse 13 of Uludunaptu by saying, Nana vam jnanam ajnanamam. Awareness that is manifold is ignorance. Therefore, awareness of multiplicity, which means awareness of anything other than ourself, is not real awareness, but just ignorance. Though such ignorance does not actually exist, it seems to exist. So what is it that seems to be this ignorance? It cannot be anything other than ourself as pure awareness, because nothing else actually exists. As he implies in the third sentence of this verse, Poyam ajnaname jnanamam tanne andri indru. Even ignorance, which is unreal, does not exist except as oneself, who is jnana, who is pure awareness. To explain this, he gives an analogy. Anigal tam palabum poi. Meyam ponne andri undo. All the many ornaments are unreal. Do they exist except as gold, which is real? The reason he says that ornaments are unreal is because they have no existence of their own, since they borrow their semi-existence from the relatively more real existence of gold. In other words, their existence is entirely dependent on the existence of the gold of which they are made. Without the gold, they would not exist. As he implies by asking rhetorically, Mayam ponne andri undo, do they exist except as gold, which is real? This is the case with all forms, because no form can exist independent of the substance of which it is made. So all forms are unreal. Since all forms exist only in the view of ourself as ego, they are all just mental fabrications. So the substance of which they are all made is mind. The mind consists of two elements, namely the subject and all objects. The subject is ego, the thought called I, whereas objects are all the other thoughts that constitute the mind. Since all other thoughts are known only by ego, they could not exist independent of ego. So what the mind essentially is only is only ego, as Bhagavan points out in verse 18 of Upadesha Undiyar. What he says in verse 18 of Upadesha Undiyar is, Enangale manam, thoughts alone are mind. Yavinam nanenum enname mulamam. Of all, the thought called I alone is the root. Of all means of all thoughts. Um, uh, um, Yanam manam enno. What is called mind is I. That is, when we talk about mind, we often use the term mind as a collective name for all thoughts. So the mind is nothing but thoughts. But of all the thoughts, the thought called I, namely ego, alone is the root. Why is that? Because all other thoughts exist only in the view of ego. So without ego, no other thought could exist. So ego, the thought called I, is the root of all other thoughts. Therefore, what the mind essentially is just I, namely ego, or the thought called I. Therefore, since all forms are just thoughts, in the sense that they are just mental impressions, their substance is mind, and the substance of mind is ego. So ego is ultimately the one substance of which all forms are made. As Bhagavan implies when he says, Ahandeya yabamam, ego itself is everything, in the third sentence of verse 26 of Uludunapadu. What he says in verse 26 of Uludunapadu is, Ahandeyundayin anatamundahum. If ego comes into existence, everything comes into existence. Ahandeyin drail indru anatam. If ego does not exist, everything does not exist. Ahandeye yabamam. Ego itself is everything. Adalal yadu edu indru nadale overdal yabamena or. Therefore, know that investigating what this is alone is giving up everything. Investigating what this is means investigating what ego is. Why is investigating what ego is giving up everything? Because the nature of ego, as he explained in the previous verse, verse 25 of Uludunapadu, nature of ego is to rise, stand, and flourish by attending to things other than itself, but to subside by attending to itself. Tedinal otum pidicum, as he says there. So if we investigate ego, ego will subside and dissolve back into its source. And since everything else depends for its semi-existence upon the semi-existence of ourself as ego, when ego dissolves, everything else dissolves along with it. Therefore, investigating what this ego is giving up everything. Therefore, what this implies is that is what this song, Anma Vide, is all about. It's expressed in the Pallavi. Aye ati solapom. Anma Vide, aye ati solapom. Extremely easy. Extremely easy is Atma Vidya. Atma Vidya means knowing oneself. But to us, it seems that knowing ourselves is very difficult, because when we try to turn our attention within to investigate ourselves, our attention keeps on coming outwards. So it seems to us very difficult. But the reason it seems to be difficult is only because we are not yet willing to give up everything. And when we try to turn within, we ourselves choose to jump outwards and go after other things under the sway of our vasanas. Why do we allow ourselves to be swayed by our vasanas? Because we want to be swayed by our vasanas, because we don't want to, we are not yet willing to give up everything. Only when we are willing to give up everything will we be able to go sufficiently deep in this practice of self-investigation to eradicate ego. This is why Bhagavan often said, Bhakti is the mother of jnana. Without all-consuming love to know and to be what we actually are, we cannot know ourselves as we actually are. In this verse, he says, ego itself is everything. But what is ego? As he says in the previous verse, verse 25 of Ulunaptu, it is just Uruvatrape, a formless demon, phantom, or evil spirit. It is formless because it has no form of its own, so it cannot come into existence without grasping a body, in the sense of a form consisting of 5 sheaths, namely a physical body, life, mind, intellect, and will, as if it were itself. And it is a phantom because it has no substance of its own, because it could not seem to exist without borrowing its substance, namely its existence and its awareness, from the one real substance, vastu or porul, namely pure existence awareness, satchit, which is ourself as we actually are. Since ego is what he refers to as nanabam jnanam, awareness that is manifold, in the second sentence of verse 13 of Ulladu, it is also what he refers to as ajnanam in the third sentence. Poyam ajnaname jnanamam tanne andri indru. Even ignorance, which is unreal, does not exist except as oneself, which is jnana. Therefore, what he implies in this sentence is that just as gold ornaments do not exist except as gold, their substance, ego, which is unreal, does not exist, ego, which is unreal, being just a false awareness that sees the one real substance as many names and forms, does not exist except as our real nature, its substance, which is the one real awareness called Satchit, which is what exists and shines as our fundamental awareness of our own existence, I am. Then in verse 14 of Uludunaplu, Bhagavan implies that when we as ego investigate our own reality, ego will thereby cease to exist, and all its knowledge of the semi-existence of anything else will cease to exist along with it, as he also implies in verse 26, which I just read. The real awareness that we actually are is one, infinite, and indivisible. So it alone is what actually exists. And hence, in its clear view, there is nothing other than itself for it to know. However, whenever we rise as ego, we seemingly limit ourselves as the form of a body, and hence numerous other things seem to exist. So the one real awareness now seems to have been divided as a subject, namely ego, and numerous objects, namely all other things. Ego, the subject or knower, is the first person, I, and all other things which are objects known by ego are second and third persons. Therefore, in the 5th paragraph of Nana, Bhagavan says, Tanmay Tondriya Pirahe Munile Padake Gal Tondru Kindrana. Only after the first person, namely ego, appears, do second and third persons appear. Without the first person, second and third persons do not exist. Oh, that's the second part. Tanne Indri munile padake gal ira. Without the first person, second and third persons do not exist. Likewise, in verse 14 of Uludunapadu, he says, Tanmay undale munile padake tam ulavam. If the first person exists, second and third persons will exist. Here, first person means ego, second and third person means all objects or phenomena. So if the first person exists, second and third persons will exist. This is similar to what he says in verse 26 of Uludunapadu. If ego comes into existence, everything comes into existence. But then he goes on to say, Tanmayin unmayai tan aindu, tanmay arin, munile padekegal mudivutru, ondrai olirum tanmaye tan nilemay tan. What that means is, if one's self-investigating the reality of the first person ceases to exist. What that implies is, if the first person ceases to exist by one's self-investigating the reality of the first person, second and third persons coming to an end. In other words, second and third persons will come to an end, and the nature that shines as one alone is oneself, the state of oneself. So what he implies here is, if we investigate the reality of the first person is ego, the reality of the first person, ego is the false awareness, I am this person, I am this body. The reality of ego is the fundamental awareness I am, which is our very being, our own existence. So if we investigate this fundamental awareness I am, which is our very existence, the first person will cease to exist. And when the first person ceases to exist, second and third persons will also come to an end. Why? Because the first person is the subject. The second and third persons are objects that appear in the view of the subject. So without the subject, the objects cannot exist. So when ego ceases to exist, everything else will cease to exist along with it. As he implies also in verse 26 of Uludunapadu, when he says, Tanmay indrail indru anatum. If ego doesn't exist, everything doesn't exist. So he's saying the same thing in slightly different words, using the term first person to refer to ego and second and third persons to refer to everything else. So when the first person ceases to exist, second and third persons will also cease to exist. And what will then remain shining, that is our own real nature. That is what we actually are. That is our true state, the state of just being the one reality, but we actually are, without rising as ego to see all this appearance of multiplicity. Tanmay, the first person, is ego, which is what is always aware of itself as I am this body. So it is a false awareness of ourself. Whereas Tanmayin Unmay, the reality of the first person, is the real awareness I am, bereft of all adjuncts, such as this body. This real awareness I am is what exists and shines as our own existence in all our three states, waking, dream, and sleep. But whereas it exists and shines alone in sleep, in waking and dream, it seems, in the view of ourself as ego, to be mixed and conflated with adjuncts as I am this body. However, even when we rise and stand as ego, the first person, and are consequently aware of ourselves as I am this body, we do not cease to be aware I am. So this fundamental and ever-existing awareness I am alone is the reality of ego, the unreal first person or subject. Since second and third persons seem to exist only in the view of ourself as this first person, so long as we continue to attend to and know any second or third person, namely anything other than ourself, we are thereby nourishing and sustaining the seeming existence of ourself as ego, and consequently the seeming existence of all other things, as Bhagavan implies in the first sentence of this verse. Tanmay undale munile padikegal tam ulavam. If the first person exists, second and third persons will exist. However, instead of attending to any second or third persons, if we attend only to our fundamental awareness, I am, which is the sole reality of the first person, this unreal first person, named ego, will thereby cease to exist, and hence all second and third persons, namely everything other than ourselves, will likewise cease to exist. And what will then remain shining as one, undivided by the appearance of these three persons, namely the subject and all objects, is the real nature of ourself, as he explains in the second sentence of this verse. Tanmayin unmaye tan aindu tanmay arin munile padeke mudivutru tan ondrai olirum tanmaye tan nileme tan. If oneself investigating the reality of a first person, but sorry, if oneself investigating the reality of a first person, the first person ceases to exist, second and third persons coming to an end, the nature that shines as one alone is oneself, the state of oneself. Therefore, as he implies not only in this verse, but also in many other verses of Uludunaptu cited above, knowledge or awareness of the seeming existence of anything other than ourself appears only in the view of ourself as ego, the unreal first person, which is what is always aware of itself as I am this body. And we seem to be ego only when we are not aware of ourselves as we actually are, namely Sat Chit, the pure existence awareness I am, which is the reality of the unreal first person. So when we as ego investigate our own reality and thereby become aware of ourselves as we actually are, ego will thereby cease to exist, and all its knowledge of the seeming existence of everything else will cease to exist along with it.
Namo Ramana sir, Anurag on the line.
Yes.
So we have a question from Mr. Harshvardhan, which I have pasted on the chat window. If it is okay by you, I can read out the question now or
Yes.
later, whichever way you may prefer.
Let me see.
The question is, I can read it out now. You may want to decide whether you want to respond to it immediately or later.
Okay, right.
So the question from Mr. Harshvardhan is, and I quote, the sense of I am feels like narrowing down of attention on some internal energy sensation from chest and upwards. Is this energy sensation the ego or the one aware of it? Unquote.
Any sensation is something known by us. It's an object. It's a second or third person. I am refers to ourself alone, to our own existence. I am means I exist. So I am is our very existence. I am is Sat Chit. So I am is not any, it is not an object. We can't point out anything and say, this is I am. This is the nature, this is the fundamental mistake made by ego. But as ego, we identify this body, this person we seem to be, we identify this person as I. But that is confusing what is perceived with the perceiver. Because the body is something perceived by us. It's an object known by us. But we, the subject, take ourselves to be this object. So this is the very nature of ego, always confusing itself with objects, taking itself to be not all objects, with a certain set of objects. It takes I am this body, I am this, I'm not that. I'm not this microphone, I'm not this table, I'm not the lights, I'm not the book, I'm not anything. I'm only this. I'm limited within this form. So this is the nature of ego. I am is not limited in any way. It's not limited in time, because there's not a moment where we are not aware of ourselves as I am, where we do not exist as I am. So it's not limited by time. It's not limited by state, because there's no state in which we're not aware I am. We're aware I am now in the waking state. We're aware I am in dream, and we're aware I am in sleep. It's not limited in. It seems to be limited in space because of our identification with this body. But if we shed this identification, there's no one place that we can say, oh, this is where I am is. I am is the what in the final verse of this Anma Viday, Bhagavan refers to as I can't remember the exact term he uses for it, but the space in which the mind space exists, that is the whole physical space, the Buddhakasa, exists where? Only in the mind space, because it only appears in the mind that there's a world. So the whole vast universe, with all which we are told is billions of years old, and it's billions of light years in dimension and everything, all this vast space exists where? It exists only in our mind. So all the Buddhakasa, the physical space, exists in the Manakasa, the mind space. And where does the mind space exist? It exists in the one real space, which is I am. So I am, we can't point out as being this or that or here or there. This, that, here, there, these are all objects known by us. So when we are turning our attention within, we are turning our attention back to the fundamental reality, to the adhara, to the adhisthana. When you go to a cinema and you watch a film, where is the screen? Can you point out any particular place in the picture where the screen exists? No, it's pervasive. It's omnipresent. I mean, the picture is appearing on the screen. The screen isn't some small part of the picture. Likewise, I am is not in any way limited. The limitation there seems to be a limitation on I am only because we've risen as ego. So I am cannot be pointed out as this or that. But that doesn't mean that it's not something known to us. But one thing we all know, there's not a moment when we do not know I am. If you ask a child, do you know that you exist? Yes, of course I am. Here I am. Of course, they take themselves to be a body, but they couldn't be aware of, but we couldn't be aware I am this body if we were not aware I am. So the awareness I am is the fundamental awareness. The false awareness I am this body is superimposed on that. So the first superimposition on the one real awareness I am, the first superimposition is ego. The false awareness I am this body. And only in the view of ego, all other things appear. So all the awareness of other things, they are secondary superimpositions. So the first superimposition is ego, the first person. All the second and third persons, all other things are a secondary superimposition. But what are they superimposed on? The one real awareness I am. So that one real awareness I am, that alone is what is real. That alone is what we actually are. So that is what we need to hold on to. For many of us, when we begin trying to investigate ourselves, because we are so used to attending to objects, when we are told to investigate I am, we start looking for an object. But obviously, I am can never be an object. I am is not even the subject. I am is the reality of the subject. The subject is ego. The adjunct conflated awareness, I am this body. The reality of ego, what Bhagavan refers to in that verse 14 as Tanmayin Unmaye, The reality of the first person, that is I am. That's a fundamental awareness. So I am, that is Satchit. That is Brahman. So, I mean, that is God, Brahman, whatever you want to call it. But that is what is fundamental. Without I am, we couldn't be aware of ourselves as I am this person. And without being aware of ourselves as I am this person, we're never aware of anything else. So what is fundamental is I am. So we need to think very deeply about what Bhagavan has taught us. Only if we understand what he's talking about clearly, will it be clear what it is we have to investigate. We're not investigating any object. We're not investigating any phenomenon. We're not investigating anything that appears or disappears. What is it that shines eternally, without a break, without ever undergoing any change? That is only this fundamental awareness I am. All change is for ego and mind and world. They are constantly changing, appearing and disappearing. They appear in waking and dream, they disappear in sleep. So they lack any stability, they lack any reality. But for one thing that exists and shines always, without a break, without ever undergoing any change whatsoever, is this fundamental awareness I am. So that is what we need to investigate. That is what we need to hold on to. But as I say, to understand this, we need to think very deeply and carefully and clearly understand what Bhagavan is talking about. Then only we'll be able to investigate ourselves. If we don't understand what it is Bhagavan is talking about, then whatever we'll be investigating will be something other than ourselves. Our aim is not to investigate anything other than ourselves, to investigate ourself alone. Ourself means this fundamental awareness I am, our own very being, our very existence. Yes.
Namo Ramana sir, we have another question from
Right.
Ashok Ji, who is with us on the Zoom channel. He's
Yes.
posted a question. May I just quote it to you
Yes,
right
yes,
now?
certainly.
Thank you. Question from Mr. V. Ashok. Quote, my question, I am is supposed to be distinct from body. If pain manifests in the body, who experiences the pain? If I is only observing the pain, who experiences the pain? Also, pain is only for one particular body. Unquote.
Right. Do we experience pain in sleep? No, we don't. What is the difference between sleep and waking or dream? Sometimes we experience pain in dream also. So it's only in waking and dream that we can experience pain. The difference between sleep on the one hand and waking and dream on the other hand, though we are aware I am in all three states, only in waking and dream we're aware of ourselves as I am this body. And only when we're aware of ourselves as I am this body are we aware of anything other than ourselves. So pain is something experienced by ego. Ego is that which is aware of itself as I am this body. Whatever great pain we are in, there's a limit to how long we can experience pain, because sooner or later, sleep is going to overcome us. When we subside in sleep, then we are not aware of even the slightest pain. Why? Because the identification I am this body has been dropped, and what remains is the pure awareness I am. So what is it that is experiencing the pain? It's not the pure awareness I am. If it were the pure awareness I am, the pain could continue even in sleep. But it's not. It's only the adjunct conflated awareness, I am this body, but experiences the pain. In other words, it's only our self as ego that experiences the pain. That's why Bhagavan says, only if the first person exists will the second and third persons exist. The second and third person means all objects, all phenomena. So the pain is included among the second and third persons. The pain is, it's a second person. It's something that is immediately experienced by us. if I tell you I'm in pain, the pain I'm experiencing is for you a third person, because it's not something you're directly experiencing. It's something that you're informed about. But the pain you experience is a second person. It's something it's an immediate part of your experience. But it's only when you rise as ego, the first person, that you experience that pain. So the experiencer of phenomena of any kind whatsoever, whether pain or pleasure or anything whatsoever, it's only ourself as ego. That's why most people believe, oh, in sleep, I'm not aware of anything. Yes, it's true. In sleep, we are not aware of anything. But though we are not aware of anything, we are aware. Because the fundamental awareness, I am, which exists in sleep, is not an awareness of anything. That is, it's not knowing anything other than itself. It is just a pure awareness. Pure awareness means awareness that is just aware without being aware of anything. Awareness of something is we can say transitive awareness. It's awareness with an object. But the pure awareness is intransitive awareness, what Bhagavan in Tamil referred to as Suttatraribu. Suttaribu means the transitive awareness, the awareness that is aware of objects. Suttatraribu means the awareness that is free of all objects. It's a pure awareness. So that is what we actually are. So long as we are attending to anything other than ourselves, we who are attending to those other things are ego. But if we withdraw our attention from other things by trying to focus it on ourselves, to the extent to which our attention is focused on ourselves, ego subsides. And if we manage to focus our entire attention on ourself alone, ego will cease to exist. It'll be, and what will remain is just the pure awareness that we actually are. But when we talk like this, for many people, when we talk about pure awareness, it seems to be something very distant. Oh, I don't know what pure awareness is. I don't experience pure awareness. All I experience is this and that. But there's never a moment when we're not experiencing I am. So pure awareness is nothing but that I am. It seems to be obscured because of awareness of other things. So we need to go back to our own being, I am, and try to hold on to that. The more we turn within and focus our attention on I am, the clearer all this will become. Because I am is the original light, the light that illumines the mind, enabling the mind to know all other things. That is, we know objects in the world by physical light. But what is the light that knows that physical light? It's the mind. Only in the view of the mind, light and darkness exist. Darkness seems to hide things. Light seems to reveal things. But all that is only in the view of our mind. So the mind is the light that illumines the physical light. But what is the light that illumines the mind? It is this fundamental awareness I am. Without this fundamental awareness I am, there would not be any awareness of anything. Of course, we can't say without the fundamental awareness I am, because that is the one reality, that's the one thing that can never be absent. Awareness of other things comes and goes along with ego, but the awareness I am shines eternally. Is that a helpful and clear answer to your question?
Yes, thank you very much, Michael. I have been following your channels, and this very enlightening. And but only thing is, I just wanted to ask whether Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi also did he experience pain when he was in the last stages, because I have read that it is almost like 100 chilies being put on the wound. He had been told that, but because he also would have experienced that.
Yes, so he said when he was asked, when he was asked, is he not in pain? He said, yes, there is pain. It's like if you crush 100 chilies and rub it in the wound, it's so much pain is there. But that pain is not other than me. For him, because he was free of likes and dislikes, he had no, whatever may be experienced, it doesn't affect him. That is the more superficial answer. The deeper answer is the Bhagavan who was in pain was the person we take Bhagavan to be. That is, in our view, Bhagavan is a person who lived for 54 years in Tiruvannamalai and who was so kind and loving to all who came to him, who answered people's questions, who wrote Arunachala, Aksharamlai, Uludu Napadu, Upadeshundia, Nana, and all these works, who answered people's questions, who cut vegetables in the kitchen, who loved to do giri pradakshina, and who eventually got cancer and at the age of 70 passed away of cancer. This is Bhagavan as he appears to us, but this is not Bhagavan as he actually is. What Bhagavan actually is, as Bhagavan often used to say, jnana me jnani. Jnana alone is the jnani. So Bhagavan is actually the infinite space of pure awareness. So in Bhagavan's view, there is nothing other than himself. But we see him as a person. So we say, oh, this person is in pain. So when he says, yes, it's like 100 chilies, he's saying, yes, so long as you take all this to be real, so long as you take me to be this body, yes, there is pain. Yes, and it's so intense like 100 chilies. But that pain is not other than me. That what he means is none of these things that we see this as one thing as painful, one thing as pleasurable. All these differences don't appear in his view because he sees everything as himself. That is what we see as all these many phenomena, as pain and pleasure and disease and health and birth and death and all these existence, non-existence, knowledge, ignorance, all these pairs of opposite, all these, we see all this multiplicity, but he sees only one. As he says, when one knows it, when by investigating the reality of the first person ceases to exist, second and third persons will cease to exist, and what remains shiny as one, that is the real, that's our real state. He is the one. So in his view, there are no many, but we see him as one among the many. That is, that person who lived in Tiruvannamalai for 54 years and was so kind and gracious, that is Bhagavan. All the other billions of people in the world, they are not Bhagavan. He alone is Bhagavan. That is in our view, because we take ourselves to be a body, we take him to be a body. But he is actually, he's the screen on which all this picture of, he is the awareness I am shining in the heart of all of us. As he says, when he was asked whether he's an incarnation of Subramanya or this God or that God, what did he answer? Ariyati tara jivara dahavari jagohayil arivairami paramatuman Arunachala Ramanan. Arunachala Ramana is Paramatma, but blissfully exists as awareness in the cave of the heart lotus of all different jivas, beginning with Hari. So from the highest God to the smallest insect, he is that which is shiny as the awareness I am in all of them. So because we have a limited view of him, it seems to us, oh, Bhagavan suffered from cancer, he had so much pain, and when the operation was done, how painful it would have been. Yes, that all seems true from our point of view. But that's only our ignorant point of view. Bhagavan is actually untouched by anything. Just like, as Bhagavan often used to say, if you go to a cinema and watch a film, you'll see raging forest fire, but the screen isn't burned. You'll see a great flood, but the screen doesn't become wet. Bhagavan is that screen on which all these pictures appear. He is ever unaffected by anything, because he is the one in whose view only one exists. We see the one as many, And so we have all these. It seems to us Bhagavan was in pain.
Namo Ramana sir, Anurag once again on the line. Sir, I'm conscious of time. We have about 10 odd minutes left, and we have two questions. I would leave it for you how you may want
Yes,
to answer.
let's answer the questions. I can continue with the explanation of this verse next time.
Sure. So the first question is from Miss Maria Gabriela Bottiglieri, and her question is, I quote, if the I subsides and there is no subject and object, what is left? It is emptiness or nothingness. What is on the other side? Unquote. The second question I can read out to you after this is from Mr. Louis Amaral.
Yes, shall I answer the first question first?
Sure.
When Bhagavan has explained it beautifully in the verse 40 of Uludunapduanabandam. This is actually a translation of a verse from one of the minor Upanishads. What he says in this last verse of Uludunapduanabandam is, Akila Vedanta Siddhanta Sarate Aham Unmayaha Urevan. I will truly tell the essence of the established conclusion of all of Vedanta. What is that? Aham Setu, I dying, Aham Adu Ahi, Aham Adu Ahil. If I dying, I become that, Arivuruvam of Aham, that I, which is awareness, which is the Chitsvarupa, we can say, the nature of awareness, Ade Mitchum Ari, that alone will remain. So what he's saying here, what remains when I dies? I alone. This may seem to be a contradiction if we don't understand what is meant. The I that is to die is ego. Ego is the adjunct conflated. It is I mixed and conflated with adjuncts. Actually, there are not two I's. Ego and our real nature are not two different I's. Just like the snake and the rope are not two different things. But there's only one thing there. What actually is there is only a rope, but it seems to be a snake. So when the snake dies, the rope alone remains. Nothing has actually changed. It's just when we don't look at it carefully enough, it seems to be a snake. If we look at it carefully enough, we say, oh, it's just a rope. So the rope alone remains. But no change has actually taken place. Exactly the same with I. Ego is not other than a real I, but it seems to be something other. So the difference between ego, just like the difference between the snake and the rope, is not a difference in substance. They're the same thing. It's a difference in appearance. The snake seems to be something other than a rope. Likewise, the difference between ego and one real I, what we actually are, is just a difference in appearance. There is only one I. When that one I remains as it is, in its pure condition, it is Brahman, it is Atmaswarupa, it is what we actually are. When it's seemingly mixed and conflated with adjuncts, it seems to be ego. So when the I that will die is only ego. The real I can never die because it's eternal, it's immutable. So what is called the death of ego is nothing but the dropping off of the adjuncts. When the adjuncts drop off, what remains is the one pure I. So when I dies, what remains is I alone. I as it actually is, rather than I as it seemed to be. That I is not emptiness, it is not nothingness. it is Purna. It is the Paripurna Vastu. Purna means what is full. What is it full of? It's full of itself. That is, it's full of it alone is real. So it's the fullness of reality. Yes, it is devoid of everything unreal, but unreal things don't exist. So if you to say that it's void is giving an undue reality to what doesn't actually exist. Because the only thing that is absent in that state of pure awareness is what never existed in the first place. Do we say, if we look at the snake carefully enough and see it's a rope, do we say, oh, it's a void, there's no snake there? No, there never was a snake there. The snake was just an imagination. There never was a snake there at all. So we can't say the rope without a snake, it's a void, it's emptiness. No, it's fullness. It's what it actually is. It's just a rope, nothing but a rope. Likewise, what we actually are is the fullness of being, the totality of all that is. There's nothing other than ourselves. So we can't call ourselves emptiness. Emptiness assumes, you can say, if there are two things, you can say, but one thing doesn't contain the other thing, so it's empty. But if there's only one thing, how the term emptiness loses its meaning. Because empty means it's not containing something else. If you've got a glass of water, if you pour out the water, the glass is empty. So it's only because of the absence of the water that we call it empty. But in the case of pure awareness, we can't even say there's an absence because nothing other than pure awareness actually exists. Is that a clear answer to your question? That's why Bhagavan says in verse 12 of Uludunapdu, Parandru, it is not a void. And why he says in so many other places, it's the fullness. It's Purna.
So she has not yet responded.
Okay.
I'm assuming once she does,
Yes.
it would be in the affirmative, and I shall let you know.
Right.
I think this can be the last question, sir, coming in from Mr. Louis Amaral. And the question is, I quote, I would like if James can explain this Sri Raman Maharishi sentence. Whatever is destined not to happen will not happen, try as you may. Whatever is destined to happen will happen, do what you may to prevent it. This is certain. The best course, therefore, is to remain silent. Unquote, unquote. Over to you, sir.
This is talking this is talking about karma. Whatever we experience in this life, experience means other things that are given to us to experience. People often say, oh, if that is the case, then I can't do anything to attain jnana. No, that is not, because jnana is not the fruit of a karma. This is just talking about the fruit of karma. So everything that we experience, every experience that is given to us, let's say, is determined by, is the fruit of our past actions, and that is preordained. When this body comes into existence, what experiences it is to undergo are predetermined. So we cannot change that. So what is never to happen will not happen in spite of any amount of effort. I can want to become the President of the United States. I can make every effort to become the President of the United States. But if I'm not destined to become the President of the United States, it will not happen, however much I may try. Likewise, whatever is to happen will not stop in spite of any amount of obstruction. If it's my destiny to be President of the United States, even if I don't want to be, even if I want to go and sit in a cave in the Himalayas and be a sadhu, if it's my destiny to be President of the United States, I'll be President of the United States. So what this is, and as Bhagavan says, Iduve Tinnam, this is certain. Therefore, the most important sentence of all is Ahalin Monamai Irike Nandru. Therefore, being silent is good. What does he mean by being silent? Does he mean that we should refrain from all action? We should sit like a stone? No, he doesn't. Because in the first sentence, the one sentence we didn't talk about was the first sentence. This is the note he wrote for his mother. The first sentence, he says, Avarava prarabdha prakaram adakanavan angandir irandu atuvipan. That means, in accordance with the prarabdha of each one, he who is for that, being there, will cause to dance. What he means by that is, in accordance with our prarabdha, in accordance with what is destined to happen, he who is for that means God or Guru. Being there means being in each place, implying in the heart of each one of us, will make us act. So, supposing it is my destiny to be a doctor. In order to become a doctor, I have to study. I have to do some. I have to study hard. I have to pass the exams and everything. Because it's my destiny to be a doctor, I will be made to do all those actions. So whatever actions are necessary for us to do, when he says in accordance with prarabdha prakaram, what he means by in accordance with, in order for the destiny to unfold, certain actions on our part are necessary. If it's your destiny to have food today, you have to eat that food. You can't without the effort you make to put the food in your mouth is an effort you're made to make by destiny, because you're destined to experience that food. So it doesn't mean that when he says being silent is good, he doesn't mean that we should refrain from all action. However, that first sentence is often misunderstood by people, because when he says in accordance with prarabdha, he who is for that being there will make us act. Many people say, oh, whatever I do, it's according to destiny. That is a wrong understanding, because if everything we do is according to destiny, then the whole law of karma becomes meaningless. Because the law of karma is there are three karmas: agamya, sanchita, and prarabdha. Agamya are the actions we do under the sway of our will, our own will. In other words, the actions we do under the sway of our vasanas, the actions we do by mind, speech, and body under the sway of our vasanas, those are agamya. Agamya bear fruit. The fruit of the agamya is stored in sanchita. Sanchita simply means a heap or pile. So that's the store of the fruits of our past karmas that we haven't yet experienced. And from that store, in each life, God selects which fruit we are to experience as prarabdha. So the prarabdha that we are now experiencing is the fruit of actions that we've done under the sway of our own vasanas in the past. So when Bhagavan says that God will make us act in accordance with prarabdha, he doesn't mean that all our actions are in accordance with prarabdha. Because if all our actions were in accordance with prarabdha, then the next two sentences would be meaningless, because he says, what is never to happen will not happen in spite of any amount of effort. That implies we are free to want things, but that is, destiny determines what we are to experience. Our will determines what we want to experience and what we try to experience. So it may be my destiny never to be president of the United States. That doesn't stop me wanting to be president of the United States. That doesn't stop me trying to be president of the United States. But it does stop me being president of the United States. So I can want to be president of the United States as much as I want. I can try for it as much as I want, but I cannot experience it because it's not going to happen. Likewise, when he says what is going to happen will not stop in spite of any amount of obstacle. If it's my destiny to live in poverty all my life, I can try as much as I want to become rich. I can try every way by hook or crook or all sorts of dishonest means or honest means or whatever. I can try to become rich. However much I try, my destiny is to be poor. So however much I want to be rich, however much I try to be rich, I am never going to be rich because it is not destined to happen. So when Bhagavan says being silent is good, what he means is not that the body, speech, and mind should remain like a stone without doing any action. What he means is we should not do any action under the sway of our vasanas. How can we avoid acting under the sway of our vasanas? Only by subsiding, only by ceasing to rise as ego. As soon as we rise as ego, our attention goes outwards under the sway of our Vishaya vasanas, and all mental activity of speech and activity of body, all ensue from our rising as ego. So what he means by Monamai Irake Nandru, being silent is good, is not rising as ego. If we don't rise as ego, then whatever action the body, speech, and mind need to do in accordance with destiny will be made to do. But we are not the doer of it because we are subsided. So being silent is good means don't rise as ego. How to avoid rising as ego? Only by holding on to our own being. To the extent to which we hold on to I am, our being, we thereby subside and remain as we actually are. When we remain as we actually are, we are refraining from rising as ego, and thereby we are avoiding getting ourselves involved in any action. The body, speech, and mind will still act according to destiny, but we will not rise to say, I am doing this, I am thinking this, I am saying this, I am doing this. So the doership will go only to the extent to which we refrain from rising as ego. And we can refrain from rising as ego only by turning our attention within. So the implication when he said, Monamayirake Nandru, being silent is good, is we can be silent in the way he intended only by turning our attention within and holding on firmly to our being. I hope that's a satisfactory answer to your question.
Mr. Louis Amaral, if you may want to respond. In the interim,
he responded in a text message. He said, "Thank you."
Okay. In the interim, Miss Maria Gabriela has also thanked you for your guidance.
Okay.
Should we continue next time, sir?
I think we can continue next time, yes. Next month, I'm not sure, because next month I'm going to be in Tiruvannamalai. So if I have an adequate internet connection, we can have our meeting as usual next month. Otherwise, it may not be possible next month. It may not be till February, but we'll see. I'm going to be staying in a friend's house, so hopefully I'll have an adequate internet connection. But I'll let you know nearer the time.
Sure, sir. Just let me know as always, and we will have it organized as per your availability.
Right.
Would you like to conclude now, sir?
Yes. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Arunachala Ramanaya.
Mr. Michael James, thank you once again for your very deep and helpful guidance to all the devotees, sir. We shall reconvene and meet as per your availability next time. I will now go back to our shrine and request Mr. Krishnan to offer Akshamanam and Arati. Sir?
We are now going to recite Arunachal Aksharamalai. Karunarunamani Kiranavali Nigar Tarumakcharamana Magarmale Tirul Nadia Tiru Adiyar Tirumaral Teliya Paravudal Purulaga அருணாகர முனி ரமணாரியன் உவகையினால் சொல்லியது கதியாக அருணாச்சலமென அகமே அறிவுடும் ஆழ்வார் சிவனுலகாழ்வாரே. அருணாச்சலவரக்கேற்ற அக்ஷரமணமாலை சாற்ற கருணாகர கணபதியே கரமருளிக் காப்பாயே. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல 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 அருணாச்சலமென அகமே நினைப்பவர் அகத்தை வெறுப்பாய் அருணாச்சல அழகு சுந்தரம் போல் அகமும் நீயும் முற்று அபின்னமாயிருப்போம் அருணாச்சல அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல அகம்புகுந்தீண்டுன் நககுகை சிறையாய் அமர்வித்ததென் கொல் அருணாச்சல ஆருக்காயனையாண்டினை அகத்தில் அகிலம் பழித்திடும் அருணாச்சல அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல இப்பழிதப்புனை நினைப்பித்தாய் இனி யார் விடுவார் அருணாச்சல ஈண்டிடும் அன்னையின் பெரிதருள் புரிவோய் இதுவோ உனதருள் அருணாச்சல அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல உனையே மாற்றி ஓடாதுளத்தின் மேல் உறுதியாயிருப்பாய் அருணாச்சல ஊசுத்துளம்பிடாதுனை கண்டடங்கிட உன்னழகை காட்டருணாச்சல அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல என்னை அழித்திப்போது என்னை கலவா விடில் இதுவோ ஆண்மை அருணாச்சல ஏன் இந்த உறக்கம் எனி பிறர் இழுக்க இதி உனக்கழகோ அருணாச்சல அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல ஐம்புல கள்வர் அகத்தினில் புகும்போர் அகத்தினில் இளையோ அருணாச்சல உருவன முன்னை ஒளித்தேவர் வருவார் உன் சூரே இது அருணாச்சல அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல ஓங்கார பொருள் ஒப்புயர்வில்லோய் உனையார் அறிவார் அருணாச்சல அவ்வைபோலினக்குள் அருளை தந்தனை ஆளுவதும் கடனருணாச்சல அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல அருணாச்சலம் வாழி அன்பர்களும் வாழி அக்ஷரமணமாலை வாழி. We are now proceeding with the Arati procedures. कदलीबलं महानैवेद्यं निवेदयामि मृदाभिधानमसि. कर्पूरनीराजनं सन्दर्शयामि चक्षां धारयामि. सत्यम् ॐ तत्सर्वम् ॐ तत्पुरो नमः अन्तःशरति भूतेषु गुहायां विश्वमूर्तिषु त्वं विज्ञस्त्वं वषट्कारस्त्वम् इन्द्रस्त्वं रुद्रस्त्वं विष्णुत्वं ब्रह्मत्वं प्रजापतिः त्वं तथा आपो ज्योतिरसो अमृतं ब्रह्मभूद्भवस्सुवरो न कर्मणा न प्रजया जनेन त्यागेनैके अमृतत्वमानसुः परेण नाहं निहितं गुहायां विभ्राजकेत्यदयो विशन्ति वेदान्तविज्ञानसुनिश्चितार्था सन्न्यासयोगात् यतशुद्धसत्त्वाः ते ब्रह्मलोके तु परान्तकाले परामृता परिमुच्यन्ति सर्वे सर्वं अग्रं विभागं परमेश्वभूतं यत्पुण्डरीकं प्रमध्यसर्गस्थं तत्राभिदग्रं गहनं पिशोगस्तस्मिन् जदन्तस्तदुपासितव्यं यो वेदादौ सुरप्रोक्तो वेदान्ते यः प्रतिष्ठितः तस्य प्रकृतिलीतस्य यत्परस्य महेश्वरः मन्त्रपुष्पाणि समर्पयामि सुवर्णपुष्पं समर्पयामि कामराज स्तोपचारपूजान् समर्पयामि कानि कानि च पापानि जन्मानि कृतानि च कानि कानि विनश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणपदे पदे पृष्ठपावनाय अन्यदा शरणं नास्ति तमेव शरणं मा तस्मात् कारुण्यभावेन रक्ष रक्ष महाप्रभो रक्ष महाप्रभो कायेन वाचा मनसा इन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्य आत्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमीद्यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि यदक्षरपदभ्रष्टं मात्राहीनं तु तद्भवेत् तत्सर्वं क्षम्यतां देव नारायणमोऽस्तुते विसर्गबिन्दुमात्राणि पदपादाक्षराणि च न्यूनानीशातिरिक्तानि समस्तपुरुषोत्तमा समस्तयजुनन्दनः त्वं कृष्णार्पणमस्तु रमणार्पणमस्तु
This brings us to the closure of today's satsang with Mr. Michael James. We shall meet again very soon. Namo Ramana.